Hey, hello, and welcome to another episode of What Does It Mean to Be Human, our podcast on life, meaning, and everything. And as usual, I'm Ron Saylor, the creative warrior, and I'm joined by my good mate, host Ben Gare. How are you today, Ben? What's happening, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Not a lot to report. I think that life's been ticking along. Been a bit of process in the last week, but just generally feeling heavy. I don't think there was an actual specific story coming up. There probably has been a story coming up. I'm just not present in this moment. But yeah, all good, man.
All right. Good to hear, mate. Yeah, look, I've still been processing, as I've been sharing on the podcast the last few weeks, that old memory I had as a young kid, getting beat up in the streets of Lebanon when I was a young hood. And that's kind of been unraveling over the last few weeks. And so yeah, I've got a really good bit to share about that, and really about the integration process, about what's been happening for me and how I've been able to integrate it. And it's almost been trying to integrate 40 years of old suppressed memories into 4 weeks. So hasn't been without its challenges, that's for sure. But you can imagine, right?
Accelerated integration. Yep. Yeah.
40 years in 4 weeks, mate. Jeez, there's a book right there. So yeah, so for me, I've kind of come to the end of it now, and it's been really good. And it was really coming down to what a young boy feels like not having a dad. And I may have shared on this podcast and previous stories how I grew up single parent, single mum, and my dad was never around, and never really tapped into the to those feelings of like my dad was never around. I mean, I got it intellectually, right, as an adult, for sure. In all the breath works, yeah, my dad was never around. The wounding around that, how that triggered my trauma, my stories, and the beliefs that I created around all that. But this time around is like really different. Like this time around, I was able to tap into like the actual experience of me when I was probably like, I can't tell the age, but it would have been probably from the ages of 1 to 5, where like, as a young kid, you look up to your dad and he's like your idol, right? And just, I've never had that in my life, right? But to have that actually, it's almost reliving the experience, like going back into that young kid and having that experience and going, you know what? I really miss my dad. I really want my dad. I really love my dad. And that's been like a really, oh man, it's been kind of like full on for me to have that experience. But as I was sharing to you off air, just the level of gratitude that's come with that as well, to be able to really have those experiences and just integrate them on a deeper level as a memory into myself. It's almost like I feel like I'm completing a journey. And part of that completion is giving me that integration to really appreciate what it means to have a father and son relationship. For all the dads out there who have, they've got young boys, or they've got sons, adults, but having that real, just that connection, that sacred connection of manhood, that masculinity, the energy of the masculine, how it's transferred from father to son, and that sacred bond. And I've never ever had that experience, ever. And I can sit here now and just reliving those old experiences and memories, and not like thought memories, but the physical memory of what it felt like. I feel like I've got those again. And it might sound a bit weird and strange, but I feel like that bridge has been built and I've crossed it. And now I sit with my dad and I look at him and I go, man, I love you, Dad. And I have conversations with him now, and I've never done that. Like, I've never thought, oh, I'm just going to have a chat to Dad. I mean, he passed away about 8 years ago, right? I never thought I would have a chat to him. And now here I am over the last few days, as this has been integrating, finding myself just going, and speaking in Arabic to my dad, Bayi Waynak, like, where are you, Dad? And he just responds. And it's like, look, this isn't nothing new, like, having a conversation, whether it's with your guides or your spirits or whatever, with God. But to be this specific and to get an answer, and not like just, and just let it come through without any judgment or any reason, or go, I'm making this up, he's not talking, but just to let it be for what it is and just have that moment. So I feel, mate, I'll tell you what, I feel great. I feel like I said, it's been a pretty full-on journey the last 4 weeks, and I feel like I've come to this point now where I'm at peace with it. I feel I have a greater connection to men, greater connection to the masculine, understanding what it's like to have that relationship with a son and their father, and just as a man and how we transition from boys to men, which is, I think, is quite important. And like, you know, that transitioning phase from adolescence to adulthood, whether it's transition of male or female, I think in our Western society, we don't give it enough attention, and probably there's not much in the form of like a ceremony or a ritual or any kind of like sacredness around that, like we kind of see in the past and indigenous cultures. And I feel like this was my ceremony coming through. I feel like this was my period to come through as a young kid into an adolescent into a man, right? And it's a journey I've been having all my life. So yeah, man, that's kind of like a long share of what's been happening for me. And it's been a wonderful process. I can't say that enough. Regardless of all the ups and downs, it's been really good just to sit in the integration of all of that.
What do you feel is the underlying sort of emotion that's being integrated?
I missed that, mate. The underlying emotion that's been what?
Being integrated.
Well, I think it's love. For me, I feel love. You know, because, mate, I get emotional now. Like I want to start to well up, and you see my eyes are starting to well up, and that's a sense of joy. You know, it's this feeling of joy, this love. Like I've never had the experience of, like, you know, intellectually I can conceptualize, oh, my dad loved me. I can conceptualize that based on my own thoughts and reasons. You know, this has got nothing in evidence. This is just me making it up. But the feeling that I have and the question that you're asking, that's something that is like, that's tangible. Like it's, my whole body just starts to resonate. My eyes tear up. I mean, you know, that shit's for real. And the emotion is just joy. It's just joy, man. It's just love and joy. And I just give myself a hug, and, you know, I feel really grateful for it, man. Because I've never had it. I was that kid that never had that.
Yeah.
So now at the age of 48, I get to have it, which is awesome.
Interesting. Yeah, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be like gratitude or forgiveness, because we kind of talked about a little bit about forgiveness last week. But yeah, when you're talking about love as the integration or the overarching, that sounds like a full completion circle of coming to the highest emotion that you can kind of get to in that sort of scenario. So yeah, it sounds beautiful.
Yeah, man, it's good. I think the forgiveness, like for me, I was sharing with someone else, whether it was on this podcast or someone else, I can't remember, but there was like nothing to forgive, right? Really, truly, there was just nothing to forgive. It wasn't about that process. And yeah, this process is really about the gratitude of having this experience, the entire experience, just not what I'm sharing now, but all of it, even the shitty bits that came along with it, you know. Feeling low, you know, wanting to hide in my room, not wanting to socialize, associate. You know, Saturday morning I woke up and I was just crying. I was just in bed and I didn't want to leave the bed, you know, but I let myself have that experience. You know, and we've talked about allowing yourself the time to heal, being gentle on yourself. And that was me on Saturday, just really allowing myself to be gentle and not getting distracted with, oh, I've got to go and do this now, I've got to go and do that, or like I won't worry about this. And, you know, the general distractions that we talk about that we all tend to do, whether it's, you know, jump on your phone, send someone a text, give someone a call, whatever, maybe go for a run. I just felt like, you know what, I don't need any distractions today. I just need to sit with this and let it come up and really have that experience in my body and see what it's all about. So yeah, man, gratitude for sure. Gratitude and love, 100%. 100%.
And so what we kind of go through this with our clients sometimes, but it's probably a good question to ask here. What do you feel is the quality it's bringing into your life now that you've gone through the process, now that you've seen whatever you needed to see or integrate whatever you needed to integrate? What quality do you feel is embodied within you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. for me, the first thing that comes to me is I feel grounded. I feel more anchored in my body. I feel more grounded in myself. You know, it kind of gives me another piece of the puzzle to me into my life and the memories which I don't have, but the experience is there. Another look from a personal level, I feel grounded and more connected to myself and as a man. From a practitioner level, I feel I can connect now. It offers me that opportunity to connect with dads, to connect with men, to connect with sons, and to understand, you know, on a deeper level, like really getting that sacredness of that bond, that father and son bond, which it's like that mother and daughter bond. Like as men, you know, we don't know what that is. We can't really understand it to that level, but we can truly understand to the level of what it means to have a son. And even though I don't have any kids, it doesn't even matter. Like this is where I'm at. It doesn't matter that I don't have any kids. It's kind of this innate. I can't even explain it. I honestly don't even have any words for it. And if there's any dads out there that can feel this and want to confirm this or whatever their views are or want to share feedback, please do so. It's kind of this unspoken, this unconditional love. It's like, mate, I will do anything to protect my child. And I don't even have one, but that's the feeling I have, right? It's like, I just like, you know what? It's like dad's here, you know? Boba is here, like he's here to protect, he's here to love, he's here to hold the space and create the structure and the foundation for my child to grow and to tap into their own hearts, into their own joys and their own woes, and just to know that I'm here for them to have that experience and that it's okay. You know, that's what I've taken out of this, man.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I'm just sort of reflecting on my experience with my dad, and certainly, obviously, 20 years unpacking stuff. I still haven't gotten to the place that you're kind of talking about, as much as it's just I had a very sort of disconnected childhood from my dad. Just to share sort of my backstory a little. He was very focused on building a business and sort of creating this structure of the backbone of the family. But then he was also quite away a lot. So I was very much with mum, and I've always been kind of super sensitive, very creative, artistic, sort of on that level, as opposed to sports, which my dad and his family and stuff like that are all very on the athletic side, which I was never going to be that sort of thing. So him away, and then me not being that thing and not being able to connect on that level, I totally understand the kind of disconnect that can kind of happen. And yeah, it makes for a different kind of experience, you know. So I kind of have had to figure out what masculinity means to me, because obviously that's different for every single person, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, there's always a lot of talk these days of genders and roles and things and masculine, feminine. I think a lot of that's pretty rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's more, we all have both poles within us, you know. We have both the masculine and the feminine, and they can be worked on separately, individually, both built up. And this is what I've done in the sort of tantra side of the field, because I feel it's like one of the best ways to start to connect with those individual bits. So yeah, I totally get it sounds like a beautiful place that you've come to within the masculine of yourself. You know, you're seeing the higher pictures of an elder being there for the children of the world, you know. So as much as you don't have the experience, as you're saying, it sounds like a beautiful integration of the higher aspect of the individual, the collective, as opposed to the individual, you know. So yeah, I don't know if I'm rambling. It's kind of what's coming up.
Yeah, man. And you know, it's good that you're sharing this stuff because everyone's going to have a different experience, eh?
Right.
Because we've all had different relationships with ourselves and our parents, and even, I mean, we talk about the polarity of the masculine and the feminine, and how, you know, the two masculines relate, and then how the masculine to the feminine and the feminine to the feminine. And you're right, we're all kind of like churning that. The energy flows through us, right? We all have masculine, feminine energy, no doubt. I believe naturally as a male, I naturally have more masculine energy, me personally. There are other males that have probably a more dominant feminine energy. Okay. It's not that they don't have the masculine, but they probably
That's
sit more in
okay.
the dominant,
Yeah.
you know, and it's fine wherever you sit. And I think it's really trying to understand that source and how we integrate all that kind of energy and what's happening in our relationships with our parents and our partners and ourselves. And it's always challenging in modern day society, where there seems to be a lot of confusion about the different kinds of energies, and like you're saying about the genders. And I personally prefer to let children understand their own energies with a bit of guidance, as opposed to trying to tell them or educate them, or like put it as part of a school syllabus. Maybe we're going down the wrong track with that. But personally, for myself, I think children are naturally energetic beings, and they have a true understanding of the masculine and the feminine, probably on a deeper level than what we do as adults, I think. And then as they grow, they just choose to fall into one. You know, one becomes more dominant, or they have a more balanced approach. It's all about how we kind of integrate all these kind of things that we learn as we go. What do you think about that, mate?
Yeah, I'm trying to not go down a sort of gender and polarity rabbit hole, because that's probably a really easy place to go from here. But it's kind of not even the point. The point is to know you've got both, and you can put the energy into cultivating whatever it is you want, you know. And ultimately, I think that the truer integration is to have a good connection with both internally within yourself, because then it gives you a wider parameter of how to operate in the world. Like some scenarios may call for a more feminine approach, and some may call for a more masculine approach within how you process, you know. So I think it's definitely a worthwhile endeavor to put some time and energy into cultivating both within your own experience, because, well, even our emotional work tends to be on the feminine side, but the both work that you and I do. So maybe the masculine then within that scenario starts to look like the discipline that comes around implementing or integrating new aspects or ways of being, or how to clear those emotions and things like that. So these two things can always work in tandem, and it's about you becoming a more holistic being. And yeah, there's one other sort of bit that you spoke about there in terms of rites of passage. I think are a really big one, you know, and it's sadly something that's been quite lost, at least in modern Western world. And that's yeah, coming of age, but even other ones, I'm kind of even thinking of like death rituals that I've been to in Indonesia, or things like that. These celebrating it and you know, acknowledging, you know, a transition of states from one place to another. And I think that does leave us a little rudderless sometimes, like that without those distinct lines, it becomes a little bit of a free-for-all, and the kind of, and maybe it's because we're talking about the masculine, like it wants that lane and that pathway to choose, you know. So maybe that's why it's a bit more relevant in the sort of the masculine context, because it's structure, and that's kind of what the masculine mind is about. It's about linear penetrating direction, and sort of knowing roles and sort of aiming for them. So yeah, probably equivalent in the feminine would be just sisterhood coming into kind of that feminine energy that they create within their own little tribes and community. So yeah, that's maybe how the two different, how they both look differently. But rites of passage, I think, are a really big one that I think deserve a little bit more acknowledging that this is the time to move forward with something different. So,
Yeah, look, I agree with what you're saying, mate. I think, you know, if we had more of that sacredness around the rite of passage, we'd probably be overall more healthier society, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. We'd probably be more grounded and well-rounded individuals, male, female, regardless of sex, gender, or stories or thoughts, narratives. We definitely would be more connected to one another. We'd be more connected to the earth, to each other. Mate, I could, you know, it's almost, for me, it's like that utopian society where we probably connect more on a heart level than on an intellectual level. But it's just one of those things. It's just unfortunate that in our modern day Western world, as you say, we just don't have that, you know, and it's just not enough of that. And it's just not really something that is talked about much, or it's definitely not in the schools, apart from acknowledging the Aborigines, the indigenous of this land. Apart from a little bit of lip service, there's not much in that form of really understanding the culture of this, the indigenous of this land, and their history and what they know and their connection to this land, in which they, you know, have cultivated for thousands of years. So, I mean, definitely we can learn, society in general can learn a lot from the indigenous and how they live their life connecting to each other, the earth, and their rites of passage, 100%.
And I think it sort of breeds more community. Like the more that we can take those opportunities to bring together different generations, because we've definitely got a disconnect from, well, younger to older often has a disconnect, and because we don't have those coming togethers, it's again creating this rift between the wisdom of the elder to the younger buck that's coming up and wanting to take that to the world, you know. So there's, and I've sort of spoken about this in sort of plant medicine ceremonies, especially sort of like cacao is a very big one these days. I don't have much connection to it, but and I don't think it does a whole heap, to be honest. It's a very mild stimulant, but I think what people really get into with that ceremony particularly is they're getting an altered state or a feeling of elation, because it's supposed to be like heart opening. And I actually think that's more coming from just being in tribe and community and sharing an act together, you know. And I think that's a really big one for creating, again, the backbone of I think empathy will rise as we kind of have this more connected experience, like you were saying, and being able to connect from where we're at and get support and all those other kinds of things that we miss in modern society by not having these traditions honored or even understood, and why we want to do them. You know, get wrong forging honor in space, not really getting the wisdom from before. You know? It's kind of free for all and that sort of respect, which makes it difficult to understand, you know, how to navigate, because even I'm always going through transitions myself, and I don't know what I don't know what things are, because I've never been this age before, you know. And that's like the simple one of, well, I don't have anyone to speak about to understand, and it's trying to just be present to what is and get it all. But I think we miss those inherent wisdoms that are possible through a more connected sort of.
Yeah, look, I want to. Yeah, 100%, man. And I think you hit the nail on the head. And the key word you used was community. Key word you used was community, and that is so powerful. When you are connected to community, it's amazing, like what you're saying. Yeah, it's not so much about what you're taking in a communal setting, but just being part of that community, a community of like people that are like-minded, open-minded, people that share those thoughts, those values. And that energy in itself can create so much heart opening, can create so many things for healing. And I mean, I guess I would relate it to, you know, it's like if you go into a temple and everyone's chanting, you feel that elation. It's like if you go into a church and people are singing, and you feel, regardless of what's been said, the energies, people like are tapping into their heart, they're tapping into something higher than themselves, and they're connecting to other people while they're doing that. And I think it really, like, I think over the last few years, probably there's been more push and drive for communities, which is great. I think it's awesome. People are starting to get together more. People are starting to join community gardens, you know, connect on with the earth, understand the different seasons, understand the different elements and all the different foods and things like that. People are connecting on a deeper level to connect with more like-minded people. And I think that's totally important, man. And it's something which is great because, you know, when you go to a community and see young kids running around and playing and people just come up and talk and people are open. It's nice, man. It's really, really nice because we've really lost that sense of community. Look, I remember when I was a kid, you know, people would come around, we'd go around to people's places, you know, your doors are open. And I mean, I heard this when I was younger and the older people were saying this and like, what's wrong with you old people? You know, I'm like turning into one of those old people now where I remember, oh, you know, the milkman used to come, leave the milk. You know,
and you've got an ethnic background, which is something I absolutely admire within sort of more ethnic communities. I've been around a lot of them, and I've traveled around the world a lot, and it's something I don't know if it's just in my family or it's in the Celtic lineage, UK kind of mindset or anything like that. So I don't have a whole heap of reference points for within my own lineage, but having spent a lot of time with sort of either Middle Eastern or even Greeks, Italians, Spanish, things like this sense of you're not alone, you know, like, yeah, you're right that I love that the kids have multiple parents and I don't know, that requires a level of trust, and we know that community can have its own problems as well, you know, but this wider understanding of that history of us coming together as people.
Yeah. And it's important for people to come together, right? We all love coming together. We all love, you know, as part of being human beings, I personally feel that, you know, we love that social interaction. It's that connection to another human being that opens up your heart, that connects you to yourself on a deeper level. Because I mean, there's us, but then there's outside of us, right? And we connect to ourselves first. I always believe, you know, change starts here. Then that change starts to filter out into the world. You're creating that change in the world. You're not looking for the world to change in order for you to feel better. Always start with yourself, and then the world starts to change around you once you're changing yourself. And that's the same with people, right? We connect with ourselves first before we move on and connect to other people, and we feel that difference. And then I mean, look, you're not going to connect with everybody. Not everybody's in the same headspace, right? It's just the way we live in. I mean, there's like how many billion people in the world? You know, you can't connect with everybody, man. If we did, I mean, we wouldn't have any wars or famine or problems in the world that we have these days, right? If everyone was connecting. So clearly there's already some dysfunction happening, right? And that just goes back on, you know, if we trace it back, I would trace it back to the individual. And every country has its own story, its own history, its own lineage, its own energies, all this sort of stuff, right? So, you know, I mean, that's probably going on another topic, but essentially it's all coming back to you and how you connect to others. And communities don't have to be large, right? They have to be massive. They can only be small communities, but many small communities make for nice, happy places, I feel, as opposed to trying to have one massive community where everyone tries to fit in.
Yeah, because that's when the politics of things come into it.
Mm.
Can get a little bit messy. And yeah, I think I'm going to go too much on a tangent if I go down there, so I might leave that one. But yeah, I don't have anything right now. Did you have anything else you wanted to? I'm getting way too distracted by too many things.
I'm glad you got to that point, mate. That's all right. You needed the space to integrate. There's a lot of information coming.
Totally. It's like, well, if I open that Pandora's box, we're going to go somewhere completely different, which is probably not where we're at. So, yeah.
See, and this is the wonderful thing about you, Ben, right? And this is the great thing about listening to information, intuition that comes through. You know, like you're sitting there kind of, well, this should I, you know, like you're integrating in the moment. This was a live demonstration for people to witness what it's like when you're trying to, not trying, but there's so much coming through. And it's like, what's appropriate in this moment? Is it appropriate, or is it my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs, or is it appropriate for what I'm trying to offer as service? And that's the difference by just blurting shit out and like actually sitting with something and just listening to, is it the right, and there's no right or wrong, but is it just appropriate for the moment, right? And that was just a great example of it.
And in another scenario, it would be totally an appropriate conversation to have. It just didn't feel like here was that space. You know, I wanted to keep it sort of on that higher understanding of like where we've been chatting throughout this conversation about the positive sides of community and ritual and integration and family, masculine, feminine. So yeah, there's always more to learn. There's always like heaps of avenues we can go down. It's trying to keep them in a coherent line of making it possible for people to understand and take chunks to integrate themselves, you know. So being the theme of today is integration. It's like there's no point being bombarded with a whole heap of information that's outside of your reality, because it's just not gonna land properly, and you know, you don't serve the people you're trying to help or educate, and yeah, it just doesn't land the way you want it to. So it's always about, yeah, taking the space and the time to check in with what is needed in this moment. You know, as we've sort of talked over the weeks, that's often how we approach emotions. And it's just like, rather than going on the habitual line of like, well, I've always done it this way, this is the way it is for me in my experience, being open to you're always evolving and everybody around you is constantly evolving as well. And it's being, well, who am I present to today within myself and within the exterior and who I'm interacting with? And yeah, it then just again sort of reminded me of your process with your dad. You feel you've come full circle to that integration of, I now have a totally new experience of him, even though he's not here to have that with you. It's beautiful to get to that place and to know that not, you may not ever get the clearing you want with the individual because they're here or not here, or present or not present, or whatever. It's about the internal process you come to within yourself. It's ultimately the true goal of
Yeah, that's gold. What you just shared was gold, mate. That's so true. It's true. I don't even have anything to say to that, mate. That was wonderful. Good share, man. That was a really great share, and it's true. You know, it all comes back to how you process it within yourself, and it's true. You know. Yeah, go on.
I just think last week we were talking about how coming to that level of forgiveness is just an internal process. The people around you could continue completely blindly on their own way in their own process, and that's okay. You're not always needing the validation externally to know that healing has occurred, because it's all internal. again, that doesn't mean you have to take shit from even if that person is still around or exists in the world or whatever. It's about you've come to the true depth of healing that comes from being able to come back to love for another human, whether they're broken or killing it, whatever it is. It's your reaction to them.
Yeah, and it always will be how you process things, right? It's always going to be how you integrate whatever's going on in your thoughts, in your body, or the stimulus happening inside of you, the stimulus happening outside of you, right? So it's always about how we integrate stuff. It's how we process. How does the brain, I mean, like there's so many different ways, you know, how the brain receives information, the body receives information. It requires time to process that information, and then it's going to send an output, right? It's going to send out the information back. And you're going to try and integrate it on some level. You may look for validation on some level. You may look for some confirmation. You're kind of looking for, there's so many different ways we're looking to either, validate, confirm, process, understand, to learn. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Is it right, wrong, good, bad? All these kind of words, labels that we put on whatever the raw, I'll call it a raw sensation, whatever it may be, that stimulus, whether it's an internal, external, and then we start to like try to make sense of it, or we try to package it in a way that formulates into our belief patterns or our thoughts and what we know, and then we're kind of looking to like, does this make sense to you? Can you just have a look at this and say yes it is, or no it's not, and things like that. But I think ultimately, as you've been saying, Ben, it all comes back to you, right? Not you specifically, Ben, but to the person, right? To all of us, and how we kind of like integrate. And I'll be upfront and say, like, you know what, this is the first time in my life I've had this integration. It's not like I have it regularly. This is a phenomenal integration that I've had. It's an amazing integration that I've had, and it's one that I'm totally grateful to have had. And like I said, the last 4 weeks have been processing 40 years, you know, so it's been quite a journey. And that journey has required me, you know, talking to my coach, you know, me doing processes around that, me sharing with friends that I trust, you know, and people not buying into my story, people not like, you know, go, oh yeah, poor you, but people like, you know, just holding the space for me to share from a place, and giving me that space to share, and sharing just with truth. So, you know, if you are sharing process, it's important to have friends that you can trust on that level, that can relate to what you're saying. Because, you know, there's no way I could share this with my family, with my mum or my brothers. Jeez, man, forget it. They wouldn't have a clue what I'm talking about, right? And it's not a place I would even take it. I wouldn't even take it there.
Yeah, there's always that want to fix, you know, and that's when you're truly coming and you're deep in the process and you've got conscious people around you that can support you. Hopefully they know that there's nothing to fix. It's just you having your process and sharing where you're at, and that's okay. You know, it's nothing more is required than just be for me. You know.
Yeah, fuck yeah, you said it, mate. Nothing to fix. There's truly nothing to fix, right?
No.
Nothing. You are perfect the way you are, in all your imperfections. You're just perfect, right? And it's just how we choose to be. It's just how we choose to be in our day-to-day lives. And there's no right or wrong around that. And I always say that, right? We just have choices, we have options, and how we want to be, how we want to take that information on board, and then how we process that information, and then how we integrate it, and how we move on and take action around it. That's all it is. It's just simple things that aren't easy. I'm not saying they're easy, but they're simple methods. It's just, you know, where are you at? How do you do it? What do you do? Things like that. And having good friends, conscious friends, having good people that you trust around you to support you in that process is fundamental to healing, self-healing. And it's at the end of the day, it all comes back to you. But this is what we're talking about: integrating, having community, having good friends around you, support group. You know, that's all part of the process, because that's essentially what community does. It gives you an opportunity to go deeper into yourself, right? So you can get a greater healing.
And if you're someone that's a fixer or wanting to kind of, you know, the way that you can check in with yourself is where am I coming from? Am I uncomfortable with somebody sharing, or am I needing a distraction from taking them out of their process or something like that, you know, which is not supportive at the end of the day, because if someone's having a raw, vulnerable share of, because often we get our own integration just by verbalizing it to others sometimes, you know, it can be the perfect way of just by having to use your mind to articulate it to somebody else, you get your own aha moments of, oh, okay, you know, and that's what a lot of counseling is at the end of the day, is being clear enough within your own space to just feedback or pick up on the key points to remind someone that's what it is. And yeah, so our responsibility as people that are supportive of others, it's so again, have done enough of your own work to just be that quiet reflection to someone else is the greatest thing you could ever be. There is nothing you could do more for somebody else than be still and sit with them in their process. Well, that's some of our thoughts on what it means to be human for this week. And I just want to kind of acknowledge you and thank you for sharing your process of, what has been definitely the last 3 podcasts, but 4 weeks for you and your experience. It's given us the opportunity to sort of a bit more in-depth unpack what healing looks like, you know, in a sort of live way. And show the audience what kind of dedication it takes to yourself to want to integrate these things and bring them into a greater depth, and obviously your result of love being the higher piece that there is nothing higher than that shows true liberation. So thank you for being vulnerable in that process and sharing with us in the weeks of how that has been in your experience.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Ben, man. You really just touched my heart then. I got goosebumps on the back of my neck. I appreciate the acknowledgement. Thanks very much for that, mate. Thanks for taking the time for me as well on this journey the last few weeks. So it's been great. I've enjoyed the whole process, in and out. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much for that, and thanks to our viewers who've been on this journey with us as well from the start and over the last few weeks. And you know, we're going to continue weekly to bring you information on what it means to be human, what's true for us. And we're always asking for your feedback, and you know, if you got any questions or any topics that you want covered, or anything that you may just, you know, not be sure about, and you just need some clarification on, you know, feel free, send us a message. You know, we're more than happy to respond, answer any questions, or have a conversation around things that you feel that are important to you, right? Because at the end of the day, we all matter as human beings.
And that's just how I was going to wrap up myself. That you know, we don't sort of plan the weekly every week what we're going to be talking about. It's just often on the fly of what have our experience been in that week. So it kind of informs us, because obviously we're doing the work to unpack all of that. We're able to speak from, I'm currently in the experience, as opposed to it's an intellectual idea or concept let's dive into something, a teaching, which would be more something like the polarity of things. It helps when we're actually coming from, well, this is what's present for us in this moment. And that's why always your comments and feedback and questions are always welcome, whichever platform it is that you choose to get in contact with us. But all these things help inform us how to support you guys. So feel free to reach out and drop a comment and share that you feel could be needed.
Awesome, man.
Cool. I think we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, mate, and see you the next time.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Bye.